anti-vax movement is rapidly gaining attention. However, unvaccinated children are a huge risk to not only themselves but people around them. And diseases that were once rare or even non-existent have come back. And vaccines don't cause autism. Today, I'd like to discuss how dangerous vaccines really can, or unvaccinated children really can be. Like I mentioned before, unvaccinated children can pose a risk to those around them. According to the CDC's recommended vaccine schedule, children aren't completely vaccinated for the measles until they're 4 to 6. So they're at an especially high risk to unvaccinated kids. Or well, they're actually not vaccinated, like fully vaccinated for everything, not just the measles, until they're 4 to 6. And also older children that, are old enough to be vaccinated, and even adults who have a compromised immune system are also at a huge risk when exposed to children who aren't vaccinated. Some people can't even receive vaccinations because their immune systems are too low. They can't. And then other people who have had vaccinations, but their immune deficiency causes it so their body still can't make an immunization or I don't know what I'm looking for is like.
You can't make antibodies.
Can't make antibodies for it. Yeah. So, Vincent Anelli gave a really good example in an article I read titled "Who is at Risk from Unvaccinated Kids?" He talked about a 4-year-old little girl who had lymphoma, and she had just started chemotherapy, which made her immune system very, very suppressed. And right after she started, she was exposed to chickenpox from another little kid. And roughly 22 days later, she came down with the chickenpox. And it was so bad that she was hospitalized, and she ended up dying from organ failure. So, as you can see, it can really be scary when people are exposed to these viruses. Two of the main concerns are whooping cough and measles, which are two diseases that are completely preventable with vaccines. Whooping cough is a highly contagious respiratory infection. In infants, it can cause them to have trouble breathing or even cause them to temporarily stop breathing. It can be completely prevented by vaccination, but babies are not completely protected until they receive their 3rd dose at 6 months old. On June 23rd, 2010, the California Department of Public Health declared a whooping cough epidemic. 9,100 people were infected, more than any single year since 1947. The lives of 10 babies were lost during that year of the outbreak. The measles is another preventable disease that has been really on the rise pretty frequently lately. Kids aren't completely vaccinated for the measles until they're 4 years old. They receive their first dose at 12 months and then their second dose at 4, and then they are completely protected. But in January of 2015, the California Department of Public Health was notified of a suspected case of measles in an 11-year-old little kid who was unvaccinated. I think this story is really interesting. And then they were also notified after that of 6 more suspected cases, and 4 of the patients were from California and 2 were from Utah. But all 6 of the patients had visited Disneyland on the same day as the little kid that was unvaccinated. By February 11th, so like barely a month later, 125 measles cases had been reported, with symptoms that were starting pretty much around the exact same time that the little kid who was unvaccinated had measles. And 39 of the patients had been to Disneyland, and then all the rest of them were exposed, like a family member had been to Disneyland or somebody in the community had been to Disneyland at the same time as this little kid. So it can really, like, just one unvaccinated kid, she pretty much, like, spread it throughout the whole country. Cases of measles were reported in 7 other states, and even in Canada. Like, yeah. And according to the CDC, 2018 had the 2nd highest number of reported cases of measles since 2010. Another big argument made by anti-vaxxers is that vaccines cause autism. Unfortunately, though, this belief is based on completely false information. In February of 1998, a study conducted by Andrew Wakefield and 12 of his colleagues linking autism with measles was published in the Lancet, which is a British medical journal. Shortly after the study's publication, though, many other studies were also conducted pretty much discrediting everything that this study had found. And then shortly after those studies, all of his colleagues, retracted what they said, basically, and said that he was wrong. And eventually, this Wakefield guy admitted that the results were wrong. He had faked it pretty much because lawyers of parents that were in lawsuits with vaccine companies had paid him to basically fake this study that the measles vaccine causes autism. And that was in 1998, and even to this day, people still make that argument. And in 2010, the Lancet, the journal that published the article, even said that, they were sorry that they published it because it was completely false. And, yeah, like I said, people, even though it is, proven and the scientists admitted it was fake, people still make that argument. But even if that vaccine did cause autism, would it be worse to have a child who had autism or a child who is dead from a disease, from a preventable disease? So, like I said, unvaccinated children are so much more dangerous than their parents seem to think. Their parents seem to think that it affects nobody but them, but it does. Like that case in Disneyland, that little girl spread measles to multiple other states and even another country just from being at the same theme park as people from those states were. And then the autism vaccine, or the autism from the measles vaccine, these anti-vaxxers aren't even doing enough research to see. If they would do one Google search, that's the first thing that comes up. They could see that this is fake, and what they're preaching to other people to say, oh, vaccines are so awful, is not even real. Because that seems to be their biggest thing, is that they cause autism. But yeah, so thank you for listening to my speech, and please vaccinate your children.
We call that herd immunity.